Hey everyone, Bob Ross here. Today I want to talk about lines, licks, phrases, whatever you want to call them, and maybe a little misconception about them, and some of the value, at least, that I found in using these. Now I'm going to tell you up front, maybe you've heard this from me before, I did transcription of solos in the beginning stages, and like when I was first out of college, I worked on transcriptions. Outside of that, I haven't spent a whole lot of time transcribing. Now, transcribing meaning in the way that I think that we're accustomed to thinking about it in terms of writing it out and then playing it. Now, I have done transcription in the other sense that many of us may have also heard of, which is just listening, figuring it out, and then playing it, and trying to match what it sounds like when you're playing with, the particular person that you transcribed. And in the beginning stages, when I worked on transcription, I was listening to make sure, and I actually had this test cam unit here, and I think that if you check my YouTube channel, you'll find that I've done a video at some point I talked about it. But I had a test cam unit that was a guitar trainer, and when I would play along with the transcription, I would try to match it to the point to where I couldn't hear myself being separate from the recording. I wanted to make sure that I hit all the articulation, phrasing. I wanted everything to be as precise as possible. Now, obviously, there's going to be some differences because of the timbre of the instruments at times, depending on, the person that you're transcribing. Now, let's go off to the side of this just a bit, something that is fairly closely related and overlaps. And this comes from hearing students talk about and ask about whether or not learning lines is a contrived thing or if it's like cheating, because they're not really improvising. And even when I mention the idea of generating your own lines, which I do very often, I still will at least do that. I'll generate lines like if I'm working on a certain song chord progression and I'm having some issues, then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and write it out. That way I have some ideas that I can revert back to and I know will work outside of the normal type of exercises or boundaries that I set upon myself when I'm working on improvisation. I'll have lines that I like to generate and know that I'm hearing the sound. Now, let me throw out some of the benefits here. Let me throw out a few things from my experience. Whether it's, actually, I'll preface it by going to this first. Whenever you transcribe, let's say you want to transcribe something literally. Now, you can do that. And you can work out a phrase and be as on top of it as possible to make sure that you have it down. Now, there's another side of that, too, that I've used in my own practice and I've recommended students do as well, which is if you hear someone playing an idea that you like, maybe you don't transcribe out the exact notes that they're using, but instead you either imitate the rhythm or you imitate the contour of the line, like how it's flowing, or maybe you listen for certain interval patterns that you recognize. Maybe this particular person is playing and using force, to build up, or fifths, and you hear that and that's something that stands out to you. So you're going to take that idea and you're going to implement that into your playing. So that's another way that you can go about generating some ideas without actually taking it from the recording and trying to nail it exactly. And then there's also the other part of this too, where you generate your own ideas, just like what I said a moment ago. Now, what I have found in writing out lines or using other musicians' lines is that it's not a way of cheating. It's not a shortcut at all. If you're just going to regurgitate the licks, that's one thing. But if you're using it as a learning tool, then what's the problem? It's like you're studying, right? It's like you take a subject and you're trying to learn it, or maybe you're going to be a writer and you're trying to study up on a subject that you want to write about, or any other field. You're trying to deconstruct what you're hearing or reverse engineer it in order to figure out maybe how is the musician that I'm listening to, how are they thinking about this? And you may never know the exact answer to that, but you're trying to get beyond surface level. So you're using these ideas in order to communicate more so with the musician if you pulled something from them. If it's your own idea, then you're using it as a way to get further in touch with the musicality that's coming from inside of you and the influences that you have. Now, sometimes there's lines that you want to hear. There's things that you want to implement in your playing, and unless you compose them out, then they may never just randomly come into your playing. So one of the ways to get those ideas to come out is to write them out. And when you write these ideas out, or you use somebody else's, you are gaining facility on your instrument as well. You're training your ears. There's many components to this. And all of this together will make you a stronger musician, and it makes you understand yourself more. It helps to understand your instrument more. So these ideas or these misconceptions that doing this is some kind of a disservice is not true at all. And yes, the music, if you're relating this to jazz specifically or any improvisational music, it's not a disservice to the music at all. When you want to communicate at the top level at what you're doing, why would you think that if you come into the setting without having no knowledge of it, that you're just going to randomly make these things up off the top of your head and it's going to make perfect sense and it's going to work? What you're setting yourself up for is this trial and error that you're going to do in real time and hope that it works, and you're going to find that most likely it's not going to work. So when you work these patterns out, you work these things into your playing, it's going to help you to solidify that connection with your instrument and the inner musical voice that you have. So in no way is this a cop-out. In no way is it a disservice to the music at all. And by doing this, it's not going to make you into some cliche player unless you do what everybody else does. Like if there's someone that you're really imitating, and you keep doing it and you keep doing it, then you may sound like some kind of an imitation. But I wouldn't be that concerned about that, unless you're hearing yourself play or other people are telling you that. Don't be worried about that. Be more concerned with making the steps to advance your playing and to have more ideas to enrich your musical language. That way you can better be to be better equipped in playing with other people and to make the music better. Okay. Now, I don't think that it's a good idea to regurgitate licks. If that's what you want to do, then that's what you do. But I like to use these things as a bridge in order to connect the inconsistencies in my playing, the development to where I want to be. That's the bridge. That's how I get there. All right, guys, thanks for watching. If you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and also don't forget, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you would like for me to discuss in future videos. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you next time.